The Toronto real estate market changes on a daily basis, and it can be very confusing because there's so many micro markets happening in the overall macro market and what we see in the news headlines. So my goal in this video is to take a little bit of a different approach. I'm not going to talk about stats or numbers. I'm going to talk about real life situations. And I'm going to go over the last 10 properties that our team has sold, obviously leaving out personal information and where they're located, and just tell you what the motivation behind those buyers or sellers was. My name is Tom Storey. We run one of the top real estate teams here in the city of Toronto. And if you're new to this channel, thank you for being here. Make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Make sure to like this video as well. You can also go into the first link in the description and book a call with me at a time that works for you. So let's start this with a 30-second summary of where things are at right now. Okay, semi-detached homes are doing very, very well in good pockets of the city. If you ask yourself, well, what is a good pocket of the city? Well, walkability, right? Things are close. You got the coffee shops close. You got the library close. You got all the things that are anchoring you to that space being close. School districts and close to transportation. And we can then go through price points and show you the areas that people really want to be in. But that's a segment of the market where the most amount of demand is happening. And you're seeing the most amount of offers. Now, detached properties in these areas are also doing very, very well. And that entry level kind of townhouse where it's in between condo ownership, but it's not quite a semi-detached, those are doing well also simply because there's just not a ton of inventory. Then we talk about the condo market, and the condo market is picking up a little bit, but there is micro markets happening even in just that segment of the market. So what I've found so far this year is the properties we've listed that are owner occupied are actually selling fairly quick. Like we're selling most of them in under 2 weeks at prices that I think make a lot of sense. But then if you look at tenanted properties, potentially just investor owned properties, they're taking a little bit longer on the market. It's not always just because of who's currently living there. It's also because they potentially bought in buildings, new construction that were investor focused. So there's a lot on the market right now. So there's more to compete with, and you have to be the best price option to actually sell. I was talking with my assistant this morning and I was like, wow, I feel like this is maybe the busiest we've been in a long, long time. And that's on the buying side and the selling side based on everything that we're bringing to the market. And then you kind of have to remind yourself, well, we're heading into the spring market of 2024 and it's a year with more optimism out there. It looks like potentially rates could come down in the future, but people are actually doing things. So the bulk of this video, I'm going to go through the last 10 sales that our team has done. I'm going to tell you what the motivation was behind those buying and selling decisions. Let's start with our most recent sale. We just helped sellers sell a property in a prime area of Toronto. It was a beautiful detached house. It was over $2 million in a segment of the market where there's less activity happening. We still had 27 showings in that first week on the market, and we got 3 offers on the offer date. Now, the reason behind selling is that they were downsizing to a smaller market. And the next example is we had people that were upsizing. So we helped them first sell their condo because you always want to do what is more difficult first. That condo sold in 3 days. We were able to get our asking price for that property, which I was very happy about because I wasn't quite sure where things were at that moment. And then they ended up buying a semi-detached property. Now, they didn't get it on the first try. They had to bid on a few because that segment of the market is really competitive. And on the one before the property that they actually purchased that we did bid on, there was 13 offers. Now, this was in the east end of the city in the type of areas I'm talking about where things are really picking up. The next example, we had first-time home buyers that had been renting for over a decade. And they just decided that this was their moment. They wanted to get in. They knew that rates were higher than they've been, but prices had come down, and they bought their first condo. Number 4, we had a listing that was owned by a family for a long period of time and was being rented out. This was a lot. We had an idea that builders were likely going to be the buyer, and that is what ended up happening. It was a property that was rented out to tenants that had been there for a period of time. What's great is that the buyer was able to assume the tenants, and in the future, they will build on that property. But for at least the period of time, the tenants won't have to leave. Number 5, we had another first-time home buyer that ended up buying their first condo. They were renting in downtown, and they decided that they wanted to get into the market. So we helped them purchase their first condo in the St. Lawrence Market neighborhood. The next example was also first-time home buyers, people that watch our podcast and watch this YouTube channel. They ended up buying their first condo in the King West neighborhood. I think we got it at a really, really good price. It was a property they had on the market like $70,000 higher at the end of last year that they brought down. And there was obviously strong motivation for them to sell. They got into a great building in a great area. And again, they had been renting in the downtown core and decided that for whatever reason, this was the moment that they wanted to enter into the market. Now, the next one was a condo listing, and the seller decided that they were moving back home. So they actually moved outside of Ontario. They moved back to where they are originally from. And they decided that this condo that they had bought pre-construction, they made a good chunk of money on it. They're going to take that. They're going to move back to where they grew up, and they're going to buy a house. So they were able to actually trade off that Toronto condo for a house in their market that they were moving to. So that is something that we are seeing happening. Some people are just saying, listen, I'm never going to get what I actually want in the city of Toronto, but I'm going to sell what I have right now. I'm going back home or going to a smaller market to buy a freehold property. Number 8, I think we're on number 8 right now. We had clients of ours that may have actually timed the market better than anybody I've ever seen. Got to give them full credit. We had sold their condo actually last year in May or June, I believe. We got a very, very strong price for it. That's when the condo market was still doing very, very well. They then decided to rent something for a period of time. They wanted to see what happened with the market. And I think they timed it really well. They bought a great property in one of the most prime areas of the city. They bought a detached house. And at the time that we bought this, we didn't have to deal with offer date scenario. There was 2 offers on the property, but they were listed at a real price. And I think they got that property at a very, very good price point. Number 9 was another first-time home buyer just deciding that they wanted to get into the market. And this is the time that made sense for them. They bought a downtown condo. And number 10, we had somebody moving market. So those are the last 10 real life examples of why people were either buying or selling. Now, we are having conversations with quite a few other people right now that are trying to figure out if it makes sense to sell. And it's not all good news stories, right? Some people are underwater on what they paid, especially if they bought it in those months of early 2022, where we're telling them, listen, it makes no sense to sell right now unless you absolutely have to, because you're going to be accepting that loss. A lot of people that want to sell still have 2 years left on their mortgage at like 2.5%, and they'd like to bring that portion of the mortgage with them. So we're working with their mortgage brokers to try and make this work and pouring that mortgage, even if we have to blend it and extend it to the next property. But I anticipate that this is going to be one of the first spring markets that feels normal in a long time here in the city of Toronto. And let's just make one thing clear as well. Like, even though things are picking up, it's not a crazy market overall. We've seen way crazier than this. This is just getting back to kind of normal Toronto market, what we've seen for like 15 years. The different asset classes are going to behave slightly differently, but whatever you're trying to do, make your decision, be focused on it, go do it. Don't worry about all the outside noise. Do what you're trying to do, and don't buy a property if you're going to try and sell in a year. That makes no sense. You should just be renting. Hopefully that was informative. A little bit of a different style of this video, but I want to let you know the actual reasons that people are buying and selling property here in the city of Toronto. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Tom Storey, and remember, home is where your story begins.